Welcome, everyone. Today, I get to chat with Manwell Reyes on being brown and bold. Manuel was born in Frankfurt, Germany, and then moved to the United States when he was 10 years old, but he grew up around the country, so in Texas, in Kansas, in Florida. And in 2003, he started a band called Group One Crew with his friends Blanca Reyes and Pablo Villatoro. After being discovered on MySpace, if you're old enough to know what that is, in 2006, the band was signed to Warner Word Records, and the group recorded and toured together until 2016. He then parted ways to explore other creative avenues. At the end of 2017, Manny started a new group called PANDAs, which was also quickly signed to Capitol Records in Los Angeles. 2 years later, in 2019, he decided to start a podcast called Nights at the Round Table and launched a solo career, which eventually led him to his partnership with Resonate Music. His music has been placed in everything from network promos, campaigns, and most recently in the NFL Shop and Fanatics 2023 campaign. He is married, has a new baby, and we're excited to hear about this chapter of his life. Manny, it is so great to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me about your name, like how to pronounce it, because we think that names are really important and it's tied to our identity, and if it has any meanings.
Well, I go by my middle name, Manuel. My first name is Jose, last name Reyes. I spell Manuel differently. Like once I got signed, I wanted to go by my real name, so I wanted to find a cool way to spell it, and so I spell it Manwell, like this man is doing well. And then Reyes, I believe, means king.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What does it mean to be Manny?
Man, I think based on what time in my life, it probably meant a bunch of different things. When I was a little hoodlum thug, what it meant to be Manny was show no weakness, show no fear, make as much money as you can. Then there's saved Manny who found Jesus, and it was like lose all of that and find grace and compassion. And now older Manny is more so finding himself uh, in a place where I'm weighing out what's really important in life because I have to pass down these ideals to this little girl that we have. And so current Manny is very fluid in taking away what's not necessary and what's not healthy and embracing what is. So I am a fluid concept at this point.
Don't you feel like the older we get more fluid because we know a little bit more?
You know, Socrates said that like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I think the biggest thing that I realized as I got older is that I care less about being right, which is not it's not popular in today's America. Like if you're not right, you're not anything. But for me, I hate now. I used to be an avid fighter, avid arguer. Now I want people to concede that we don't know. On most things we don't know, especially when it comes to faith, when it comes to, predicting stuff or trying to get into other people's psyche. It's like you don't know, and it's like literally okay to say, I don't know. I have an idea, I have an opinion, but that opinion doesn't have to be right. So much so that I'll argue with you to make sure that you believe it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that's like my biggest thing that I learned growing up as I'm getting older.
yeah. Let's back up. Let's talk about cultural heritage. Can you share a little bit more about your cultural heritage and how that has informed your life and your work?
To be honest, not at all, because I was born and raised in Germany, like you said earlier. There was no people that looked like me, so I learned German culture before I learned Puerto Rican culture. So that first 10 years of my life, it was just, oh, I'm German and I'm American, right? And then I moved to Kansas, which again, no one that looks like me. Everywhere I went, it was small minority of black, large minority of white. Most people just thought I was black because of my skin and my hair. And so the idea of being Latin, Puerto Rican just never hit until my parents retired in Orlando, which was little Puerto Rico. And then I realized, oh my gosh, here's my people. And then I went super hard. And I was like wearing the Puerto Rican flag, Puerto Rican t-shirts, Puerto Rican flag on my car. It's like I found my people, you know, and I still didn't understand the culture of it. I knew that we ate rice and beans. I knew that stuff, you know. I knew that my parents spoke Spanish. I know that, you know, we had certain things that we did, like, you know, celebrating Three Kings for Christmas as well as, you know, normal Christmas. But again, I don't think I ever really like researched or understood my culture. Not until like, honestly, probably like 2, 3 years ago, where I started dissecting the relationship between Puerto Rico and America and how contentious it is, has been, probably always will be, you know. And then I got a little glimpse on, oh, okay, like this is the history of my people. I learned about the slave trade. I learned why we were called the rich port. I learned why some of us are blacker than others, you know, because our makeup is Spanish, black, and Taino Indian. So it's like, oh, that's why I'm a little bit darker because I got more African in me and more Taino than I do Spaniard. So all of that was like super interesting, and I'm almost embarrassed that it took me this long to actually learn it, you know?
Did your parents try and teach you about Puerto Rican culture when you were little? No?
No.
Did they come straight from Puerto? I'm assuming they didn't go straight from Puerto Rico to Germany, did they?
No, Puerto Rico to New York.
Ah,
And from New York, my dad got into the army, and
got
that's how
it.
we ended up in Germany.
And would there be Puerto Rican food in your house growing up?
All the time. Everything Puerto Rican. But I didn't know no different. To me, it wasn't Puerto Rican food, it was just food.
Got it.
You feel me? There was no emphasis of like culture in that regard. I don't know if it was a big thing to my parents.
Hmm. I
Culture,
grew up in New York.
did
Uh,
you?
I was born in New York. My
Okay.
parents came to America the year before I was born. So I was born in Queens, raised in New York, and everything about my life on the weekends was Indian. And
Mm.
everything about my life when I started school, uh, lived in an Irish Italian Catholic neighborhood,
Oh wow.
and so I just felt this double identity of like I'm white on the weekdays and Indian on the weekends because we were even the church that I was part of that my parents were part of was an all Indian church, and
Mm.
so it was in our language, the food, the clothes, like everybody wore Indian clothes every Sunday because that was the only time you could because you can't wear those things during the week. So I definitely had this. I'm growing up in two cultures, and most of the people I knew my age kind of rejected the Indian side because we wanted to be American, because we were hyper aware. Okay, there's a difference between the two. And it was in college that I started to. It's not even just Indian, it was just Indian Christians from my specific state in India are the people I knew. And I went to college, I met people from all over India. So, like Gujaratis, Punjabis, um, people who spoke different languages, different religions. And I was like, oh, you're Hindu? I read about Indians who practice Hinduism in my book. But, and it was such a weird concept to think about India as much bigger than like the little part I knew. It's kind of like if you think about Latino, right? If you speak Spanish, I feel like that makes you Latinx. So you could be Puerto Rican or from El Salvador or Mexico. But obviously, the cultures are so different from each other, right?
Mhm. Yeah, for
So,
sure. I mean, even the way we speak Spanish, like Puerto Ricans speak super slang, like really, they call it like just street Spanish, you know? We're definitely not, the hierarchy is definitely built on how well you can speak Spanish. So like Spain, obviously, because they're like, we're the origination, you know, and then you got people who speak proper, like Colombians and even Mexicans speak, I guess, a little bit more proper than we do. But yeah, it was, you know, I don't like my culture, all of that never really landed with me. I I just never even thought about it. I
Hmm.
I just knew my dad was in the army and we were American, and that's kind of how I felt. There was like a couple of times where it would peak out, like I said, when I finally met other Puerto Ricans was one. When I was in college, I really wanted straight hair, like the white boys who had faux hawks. So I uh what is it called? Relaxed my hair like all for the first 2 years,
Wow.
burned it, and I had to shave it, which is how I came back with this crazy afro. It was all a result of me burning my hair and having to shave it off. Those are
Wow.
the only two times where I can feel like I tried to acclimate one way or the other, you know.
Hmm.
But it was short-lived because I don't know, the type of person that I am. I just I've never been made um to be a follower. It's just it's really weird for me to like follow people or
Hmm.
be peer pressured into thinking that I have to be something. It's weird. And I don't think that's anything like special that I created inside myself. I always think it's like a gift from God that I think the way I think, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, a lot of it is just knowing who you are, what you're like, your identity, and the way that you make choices. So, I guess when you were little, then what did you imagine your life would be like as an adult?
Horrible. We were poor. It was like I didn't think we were gonna do anything. Like, and I would say it was less about me knowing who I was, more so knowing who I was not, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
still didn't know who I was. I was like forever growing, but I knew I wasn't like a follower. I knew I wasn't certain things. What I would become or what life would turn out to, I can honestly say it was bleak. Like there was absolutely zero uh thought that I would become something, that I would live this awesome life. I was ready to be poor all my life.
Hmm.
It didn't make me work any less hard. I still worked hella hard like I was gonna be something. I just didn't have any like idea that
Like not even like watching TV or movies. I'm like, oh, I want to be like that.
sure, I mean there's that, but it didn't sink as in like that would be possible. But that was the dichotomy in my mind because I would work like it could happen. But
Hmm.
my mind was like, ah. Like I remember one of the most core memories in my mind was I'm a car guy, so I love cars. And I remember when it came time to get my first car, I really wanted a BMW, right? Because again, from Germany, I grew up just seeing German cars.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm never gonna have enough money to get a BMW. So I got to figure something out. And this was me. Like, this is the epitome of me. Like, I figure stuff out. Like, I'm just gonna figure it out. And so back in Orlando, there was this, I don't, it depending on how old you are, there's this little car. I mean, you can get it anywhere, but it was a Toyota Tercel. But in Orlando is when I finally saw somebody hook it up with ground effects and everything, and it looked like a baby BMW. So we would
Wow.
steal the BMW sign, like logo off of BMWs, and we would slam it onto this Toyota, and it would look like a damn baby BMW. And in my mind, I kid you not, that was the goal. Mind you, the Toyota Tercel was about an $11,000 car, brand new. So that's what I was shooting for. I was
Right.
like, if I can just get this Toyota Tercel and transform it into a fake BMW. And that was the extent of my dreaming. Because I just, my house wasn't full of dreamers. I wasn't surrounded by dreamers. I wasn't surrounded by anything like that. So how I ended up becoming the biggest dreamer and working towards dreams, I have no idea. I genuinely believe it was like the grace of God. I feel like that was my superpower. I didn't believe in no. I didn't believe in I can't do it. That stuff just didn't sink. Didn't matter how weird or without hope the situation felt. So I literally just look at God and look at my wife and I'm like, babe, this is just wild. All the time. I just a couple days ago I was crying in my kitchen. I was bawling because I was like, I'm doing a lot of talk with my business managers about life insurance and all these new kinds of insurance. And we're doing a net worth sheet, which you only do those if you have like a net worth. You have to determine a net worth to determine how much insurance you need. This is
Right.
all like new to us, right? And I'm looking at our net worth and I'm looking at the insurance and I'm like, just like, how did these two poor kids that had zero direction, zero guidance, no one in any of our families are like, quote unquote, really, really successful? Like, how did we end up here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No roadmap. It's wild. It's
So
wild.
when it came to your career, did you have difficulties in choosing a vocational path?
No, I always knew it was going to be music.
You did?
Yeah, because I would go to sleep as a kid listening to music in the background. And I would imagine that I was on stage, but the voice that was coming through was whatever singer I was listening to. So I was basically lip singing on stage, pretending it was me. And I did that for years, years. And I just probably from like 12 on, I was like, I'm gonna be the singer. I didn't know how to, I'm doing it. I had no idea, but I just knew that was it. And I just chased it. I learned how to record myself. I learned how to mix myself. I bought a whole studio on a Discover card that was 0% interest for a year. So I was like,
How old were you at this time?
I was at this point, I was probably 17,
Okay.
just getting out of high school in that range. Because before that, I was recording on a Radio Shack boombox
Mm-hmm.
when it was just tapes. So I would record onto a tape, right? So again, I don't know how young your audience is, but you got
Like
two
the
dual
two
tape,
cassettes,
right?
right?
So one
Yes.
cassette had the beat.
Yep.
The other cassette, I was recording my vocal and then the beat to that cassette.
Yep.
And then once I got down with take one, I would then move what I just recorded over to the right side, put a new blank tape in so that I could do doubles
That's
on this
amazing.
new one. So by the time I'm done, it's so degraded. But it took me a year and a half to do like 15 songs because if you mess up, you got to start over. There's no.
Right. Right.
So I went from that to buying Pro Tools to buying a computer to doing all that. And I just taught myself. I just stayed in the house and taught myself.
That's really
Again,
ambitious.
it's
That,
wild. It's really, really wild. When I look back, it took me 12 years to get signed.
hmm.
12 years of just like, all right, Jesus, as long as you give me enough money to put out the next record, I'll keep going.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
had no idea how I was going to get out of Orlando. I just kept going and just kept
Hmm.
seeing, oh, there's enough to make another record. Oh, that's the Lord telling me to keep going.
Hmm.
And by the time I look up, I had 8 records, hundreds of songs until I got signed.
Hmm. Your
Yeah.
story is a little bit like the Beatles. Like they also didn't get signed for forever, but they were doing live concerts for, I don't know, 4 nights a week for a whole year, getting paid like nothing. But it's that whole 10,000 hour rule of like, just keep doing it. And like, eventually it like
Yeah.
clicks.
I mean, I almost feel like I'm still doing it because I for sure have not reached Beatle status. So in doing it now, I'm learning how to produce now,
Mm,
myself, so that I can own more of the music so I can make more money as I put stuff out.
right.
And that's like a whole new 10,000 hour thing. Like just before I got on, I was mixing 2 records this morning um to release here soon. So I'm still learning. I'm still a student of this game. So, and
Yeah.
I'm 43. But
Oh, you're like, I don't know how old you are. You know how old I am? I would take my tape recorder. It's not even a boombox. It's like those flat tape recorders.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Put
yeah.
put my clock radio next to it so I could have the music, and
Oh
then
wow.
hit record with me singing with my clock radio to the radio
Oh wow.
station.
That's
That's how
awesome.
old I am. So wanting to do music, uh, did you feel like those dreams were different from either your peers, your friends, your classmates, or your family, like going this road?
Yeah. I didn't know dreamers. There was nobody, even when I think of my high school, like we had a big high school. Like, I don't think anybody that came out like ever did anything besides a normal job.
Hmm.
We got some athletes come out, but nobody made it past like college. Um, there's just nothing around me that was like, I want to do something extraordinary. I feel like
Hmm.
everybody was kind of duped into thinking we just got to do this normal thing and we'll just get by.
Hmm.
That's what everybody came from. Now, it may be different in the wealthy areas with wealthy families. Maybe they knew there was more out there because they see it on a daily. For us, all my friends, everyone I was around, we were just like, all right, let's just survive. Let's just be able to eat. So I couldn't share this with anybody. It was literally just me by myself in a room, just dreaming my little heart away. Parents didn't understand it.
Yeah, what did they think? What did they say?
They just thought I was crazy. When I told them I was going to Bible college, they were so upset because they're like, I did really good in school. So as much as I was a little hoodlum gangster and class clown, I graduated high school with like a 3.95 GPA, and I graduated college with a 3.95 GPA. So I was always like really, really smart. And so I got scholarships to go to any school in Florida. And I chose to go to this Bible college where I didn't get full ride. I had to come out of pocket. And so they were just like, what are you doing, man? And I was just like, look, I'm gonna be a musician. School, I'm just going for fun. So if I'm gonna go to school, let me, I want to go learn about this Jesus guy. So I'm just gonna go to Bible college. And I'm like, none of it matters. Like learning about Jesus does, but where I go to school doesn't, because I'm gonna be a musician. And so I went and took me a year for them to jump on board because I started a group when I was there, started doing music, started doing shows, and then they got into it and became fans. And after that, they were kind of like hooked
So
on.
Group One crew started in college?
Nah, college was
Oh,
this group called XYC
uh-huh.
with my boy Paul and Liz. Expand your consciousness is what it was stood for.
Hmm.
And I did that through Bible college, and then when I got out, started Group One.
God. Aw.
A
That
lot
is
of
def-
a lot of creations and failures. It's like, well, I wouldn't
but
even call
that's
them failures, just transitions. We transitioned into different places.
right. Like what are the lessons that you learned in within all those transitions?
The biggest lesson I learned was that when God gives you a calling, no one else is going to love it like you do. From that, I learned don't hold people responsible for that. Like,
Mm.
don't look at them like there's something wrong with them. It wasn't their dream.
Hmm.
I used to take that crap personal. Why don't you care as much as I care? It's like, bruh, they didn't get the dream. You got the dream. You started
Hmm.
the group. I used to think that I could love people into caring more. I used to think that I could, I don't know, make people care more than what they did. And then when they didn't, I just took it personal.
Hmm.
Very bad on my part because as opposed to just celebrating and thanking them for being along for the ride for as long as they could be along for the ride, I would take it personal and feel like nobody cares as much as I do and blah, blah, blah. But that was like the biggest thing that I learned, because after going through group after group after group, you start feeling like, oh man, you know, I'm picking the wrong people or I'm whatever. But it was never that. It's just people are in your life for a reason, a season, or forever,
Hmm.
And a
Hmm.
lot of them just end up being a season. And now I'm just grateful for every one of those seasons because there's a line by Drake who he talks about this one song about talking to his mom, and his dad wasn't a good dad at all, like totally not good. But he says to his mom, he's like, look how we're living. Who are we not to forgive him? And I'm just like, damn, that's so true.
Hmm.
Like, look how we're living. Who are we not to forgive him? And I look at my life and I'm just like, I can't hold nothing against anybody because look how I'm living. Like,
Hmm.
whatever people felt like they wanted to do to me or come after me. And I don't think any of my group mates were like that, but I just think like the world, haters, whatever, like nobody has succeeded. So I'm just like, everything in my past is good, you know? I learned lessons, don't get me wrong. I ain't starting any groups anytime soon, I'll tell you that. But I'm super grateful for every one of my groups because they all added something to me that I could not do on my own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neat. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's really important. Even that concept of being gracious to people, because I think in our culture, because being gracious means you care about somebody else. And I think too often we're always looking at ourselves in our culture. So that's like a great word for people to, how are we showing grace to others and being loving, which doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody or everybody's like you or you have to like everybody, but grace is a concept beyond that.
I think the only way to access grace for other people is to admit how crappy you are. And I don't meet people that can do that. I can count it on one hand
Mm,
in my life. People who can actually see how crappy they are to then extend grace to somebody who's crappy to them.
mm,
It's just not in our nature, man. And
right.
that's why my circle is so small. And even sometimes there's some people that gets in that it's like you only can see your hurt. You can only see what people did to you. You cannot fathom that you do stuff to other people. You can't fathom that you broke hearts, that you hurt feelings. So you only see what's been done to you, and then you live in this perpetual victim state of mind when it's like, nah, bruh, you are an offender. We all are. And the fact that you can't see it lets me know that you don't live in a real world.
Mm,
Live in a fictitious world that you made up where you're the victim and the hero at the same time. Hero when you do something good, victim when anything doesn't go your way. And I don't live that way anymore. I I completely recognize 9 times out of 10 when I'm upset, when I'm whatever, I have a big hand to play in it. Somehow, some way, it's on me. And I get to that place where I'm like, take accountability for what I did. Like in all my groups, granted, there were literal things where there was like malicious things done to me, but I still take responsibility for it because I'm the one that picked the group. So it
yeah.
falls on me. Everything falls on me, you know?
And you
But
can't predict everything. And I mean, we all change, right? Like you pick them, but we all change and grow. So we're not the same person that we were a year ago, 5 years ago.
mhm.
So there's that too. But I get what you're saying that we can't make ourselves the victim of everything when things are not going the way we had hoped or planned or yeah, no, that's totally true.
It's the only way to get through, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm,
let me stop. It's the only way to get through quickly. Because I feel like there's things that happen to people that you totally have the right, like when you're a real victim, because there's some stuff that happens when you're a legit victim.
right,
So I'm not talking about that. Victim
right,
mentality and actually being a victim, two different things.
right.
Uh, but regardless, the answer and the key to getting through both of those is going through as quick as you can. And the only way for me to know that to get through that is to find out whoever is the oppressor, whoever is the victimizer, and forgive them and love them, and then go right through all of the emotions, all the crappy feelings. You just forgive and you keep going because
Mm,
I think what we usually do is gauge or compare our bad sides, right? So if something was done to me that I could fathom doing to somebody else, then I immediately take a moral high ground on that person. And for me, I'm like, bad is bad. You know, I could say the smallest thing and hurt somebody so deeply, and it'll hurt them as much as somebody saying the nastiest thing to me.
mm,
I can't compare people's bad, right? I just have to admit that I have made people feel bad. I
mhm.
have done that. So I have to extend grace to people who have made me feel bad, whether malicious, whether unintentional, it doesn't matter. I have to be able to extend grace because that's the quickest way through it. And I don't like sitting in my sadness. I don't like sitting in my victimhood. I just don't.
Right,
There's
because you can't go forward if
no,
you're
you can't
sitting in that.
move.
Right,
You'll stay stuck. And then you'll start seeing everything through that lens.
right.
Now stuff that's not even meant to hurt you or people aren't even trying to be bad to you, you see it as they're coming after me.
Mhm.
It's just not it's just not a good place to be. At least for me. I don't want to put that on anybody else. You stay wherever season you want to stay in for as long as you want to stay in it. And I won't, I'm not gonna be mad at you. It's up to
All
you.
right. I'm going to change subjects. You are married and your wife is also of a different culture. So,
Mhm.
what has that been like being in this intercultural marriage?
Mm.
Have you seen differences
My
culturally
wife
with the
is
two of you?
my wife is probably white, more white than she is Mexican. I mean, look, for us it's the food, right? So, but she don't speak Spanish. None of her family speaks Spanish. They're more American than anything. Mexican American, I guess I would say.
Did
I,
the two of you not take Spanish when you were in high school?
mm-mm.
What do y'all take?
No, I didn't take any language. I mean, I learned German when I was in Germany,
They didn't
but
make you take a language in high school?
I don't think so. It
Huh.
was a long time ago, but I don't remember taking no Spanish classes. She tried to learn some Spanish, but it's more American. Her family's more American, way more American than mine. My parents speak fluent Spanish all the time. That's all they speak. So when you go back to my house, it's Latin all day long. So it's definitely not American.
So, when you grew up, weren't you listening to that,
Yeah.
but you didn't speak it or try to
No,
speak
because
it?
more of my time, none of my friends were,
Mm,
so it's like I didn't have it to practice at home. Yeah, we're super Puerto Rican at home, but just didn't translate into real life because I just wasn't surrounded by it.
mhm,
Neither was my wife. So my wife grew up in San Jose, so there wasn't, the only difference is that she has a big family and
mm,
I don't know grandparents. I don't know anyone. I just know my parents, my sister, and one uncle. And that's
mm.
it. I never met my grandparents. I never met anything. And her side, they be having 400 people family reunions. I'm like, what the hell? I stepped into it and I was like, this is real. I only seen family reunions on TV, but
That's like a whole cruise ship.
yeah, that would be the Mexican side that is different. The families are big, they do everything together. So I think that's awesome. That was the biggest culture shock, I would say, marrying into a Mexican family.
Hmm. So then now you have a child. What is life like as a father?
Man, it's very I'm in a constant state of like cognitive dissonance. Like I'm always thinking of stuff and I stuff that I just never thought I'd be thinking about, you know? Um, how am I gonna raise her? How am I gonna show her who God is without all the pretense of what I learned who God was? You know, I don't want her to go through what I went through on feeling superior to non-Christians because we got the Savior, and then also superior to other Christians that don't think the way I think. All that bull crap. I don't want her to grow up with that. So how do I teach her who God is and that loving people is the most paramount thing that she'll ever do? It's the most effective way she'll ever reach anyone. Um, how do I she's obviously going to have a step ahead in life. And that I'm very proud of because she will not grow up poor. She will not grow up in lack. She will grow up very okay. But then at the same time, how do I create a little girl with some grit? Just a little,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need her to be a man, but just some grit, some understanding of like, not everybody lives like this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I create that for her so that she has a very well balanced mentality of the world, you know? Um, these things are very important to me. And I don't know the right answer. Like I put on my Instagram the other day, like, should you leave your kid a bunch of money when you die? You know, everybody had their own opinion about it. Some people obviously brought up Proverbs where it says a good man will leave an inheritance. And I'm like, yeah, but the Old Testament 9 times out of 10 was talking about land. It was very like specific. It wasn't, when they asked Jesus about it in Luke, he was like, oh, this is where covetousness comes from. Like inheritances are like bring out the worst in people. So he was more cautious. He was more like, be careful of this because this isn't like just as easy as, yeah, leave a bunch of money to your kin and nothing will happen bad. No, everybody knows this. The second money is involved when somebody dies, it is brutal. The fangs come out, families fight. It's not good. It'd be better if you just gave it all away and gave nobody nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like understanding that and her place in all of it, if we did die, I'm doing our wills now. And I'm like, oh, this is stuff that I never thought I'd have to think about.
Right.
And it's very like it just again, it makes kind of jarring. Like I'm always thinking of these things and then her and how to like encourage this little girl because she's already sassy. And I'm like, I'm not gonna bridle this sassiness. I,
Right.
I want her to like strut her stuff, but be kind and gracious. But don't
Right.
ever back down. Don't ever back down from anyone. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
so little by little, I'm learning. Um, I'm grateful that we have help. It's not lost on me. We've been able to hire a nanny, and we've had for the first 6 months we had 24/7 help, do night nurses and stuff. So that's been a blessing. I know that that's not for everyone. That's not everybody can do that, and so it's not lost on me that that's rare. But it's a part of my story, and I'm super grateful for the beautiful women that stepped in and helped me and Ange not be so scared. It was awesome. We had these two women from the Caribbean, and are from, um, they were just great, great people. Where were they? Where are the actual countries they're from?
Spanish speaking.
No, they were island. They were, I say Caribbean, but Belize, Belizean.
Mm.
So it's either South American or Caribbean. But they were amazing. Two sisters. One came for 3 months. The next one came for the next 3 months. And they were God sent because we were ushered into this. We were so scared. We were just like, let's just keep this thing alive. And they were so gracious with us. They just kind of just led us the whole way. And then now we got this amazing nanny from Venezuela. She's a sweetheart. And it's the only reason I'm able to do this right now, like even talk to you. So I think
That's
that,
amazing.
yeah, it's
That's a
been,
gift. Yeah. When you're talking about like raising your kid, especially when, what do you want them to be like when they grow up and you're talking about finances? That was one of the things we talked about because, um, do we pay for their college or not? Because it feels like, well, we could. And so one of the things we told the kids is we are going to save up money to pay for an in-state college for you. And if you want to go out of state or go to private or whatever it is, you are totally welcome to, but this is like what we're going to contribute to it. And they knew that young, so they can think through, I can work hard and get scholarship money. Um, or maybe it is worth that investment with loans um, and then even work wise we made sure that they all because I started working when I was 16 and
yeah.
um, that whole understanding work ethic and how to use money and now they all like are independent. They grew up in the country. The three of them live in three different cities and can pay their own rent.
Mhm.
And we're like, oh, we won
Yeah.
because they figured it out. They definitely spend way more at their age than we did at our age, but they have, nobody's using credit card. I mean, they use credit, but not, like, they're not maxing out their
Yeah.
credit cards. And I was like, oh, okay, we did it. We like made it through, but it
Yeah.
took a lot of thinking.
It's just
Like this
really
stage
because
is
you
really
obviously
easy.
you obviously don't want them to go through what you went through, but at the same time, I'm like, I am who I am because of what I went through. I
Right.
don't want this little girl thinking that she can coast because she has this crazy money come at her when we die. I'm like, I'm very specific in the will. I'm like, all right, this is what's gonna happen, and people have to vouch for her character. If she's a crappy person, she's not getting anything. I don't know
Mhm.
how she'll be crappy because I don't think her mom and I are crappy, but kids can do whatever they want. I can't make her be who I want her to be. Uh, but I also know that there are such incredible things that my parents did for me, probably on accident, you know. I was on my own at 14. So there's nothing, I had to get everything. There's no car was bought for me. I put myself through college. My bills, my phone, my whatever, my health insurance. I paid for my health insurance, you know, once my dad was out of the army. And so, and I was really grateful for that. You know, I tell Ange all the time, I was like, she'll get a phone when she could pay for a phone. If she figures out how to pay for a phone at 12, then we are already ahead of the game. Because this little girl figured out at 12, because she wanted one so bad, how to sustain some kind of income to pay for a phone. Other than that, I'm like, yo, you're gonna have to figure it out because I'm not into handing anything. Now, as far as school and everything, like if she shows me, I won't push school on her because I think college is the biggest joke. Unless you're gonna be a doctor or you're gonna be a lawyer where you have to go to school, I will not push school on her. I'll be like, do what I did. It's a game. It's a game. I'm gonna tell you exactly what you need to survive in this world. You need to know how to add, you need to understand debt, you need to understand interest, you need to understand mortgages, car loans. These are real things that get people in super big trouble. Why
Right.
most people are in
Why don't
debt.
they teach those things in school? Like that's what you actually need to know.
You will, I'm not gonna give two craps about journalism. I'm not gonna care about your chemistry. I'm not gonna give a crap about, and unless you're gonna be a doctor, then I'm gonna care about chemistry. But I would tell her straight up, babe, I have not used anything from high school, anything except for adding, subtracting, a couple of, division, multiplication, like this basic stuff is
How to
you can
tip. How to
yeah,
tip
you
is a
can
good one to
survive.
learn.
You will survive in this world. Everything else you will forget unless you want to go into these certain
Profession.
degrees.
Right.
So if you do, show me by your grades. Like, show me that it means something to you. And if you do, I'll pay for college. That's all good. I'm not going to saddle you with debt. Like, but you'll have to show me. Like, it
Right.
ain't gonna be like I'm gonna pay your way through it. Like, if you rock it in high school and you're like, Dad, I really want to go do this. All right, I'll take care of it. Like, no problem. I won't hand out anything. If she shows me laziness, she'll have to pay for college on her own.
Right.
I
Right.
won't do it. I won't do it. I will spend the money in her face. Literally. I will, because I'm like, this is the world you live in. This ain't easy.
You
I
know,
really think she'll grow up to be a really good person and she'll understand money because I will teach her. But we will see if she rises up and becomes an awesome little girl that I know that at least she has the parents to help her become that. And
right.
that's my hope because I would love more than ever for her to take our money and multiply it. But not
Hmm.
only multiply it, but then do so much good with it. Who is she
Right.
gonna help? Who is she gonna, think outside of herself? I'm gonna she'll bypass the whole thing that us poor people did whenever we do come into money. All of us poor people, when we get money, we feel like we gotta buy stuff. We gotta get that car. We gotta get that Louis bag. We gotta get the big house. We have to see how the other side lives. Then we get it and it doesn't make us happy.
Right.
Some of us are able to escape without major problems.
Hmm.
Most of us end up in the craziest debt that will never pay off and it sidetracks our whole life and we're just working for stuff.
That's actually how I first noticed you, that you were selling off your designer stuff. And I was like, wow, I don't see that at all, but I see you doing it. And I think there was something that you're like, I think you were like, hey, where can I donate? Because I work with charities. And you're like, where can I donate this stuff? I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't see that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I think that's what first made me think about, oh, that's living out your faith because you know there are people who need stuff. You know that your identity doesn't come from your stuff and you're doing something about it, which was, yeah, super
Yeah,
impressive.
like I sold all, look, I get people want designer stuff. So I sold my designer stuff to people like at half off or even more. Cause I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, this doesn't bring me, I'm not trying to get rich off of people. Like
Right.
I know there's people that follow us that would love to have Angela's shoes or would love to have my whatever. I sold half of my closet, probably more than that,
Wow.
and put it into real estate
Mm-hmm.
because I got so sick of myself.
Mm.
I was buying stuff to feel important. And it was really hard to admit. I bought it before because I was in music and it was the thing to look a certain way when you're on stage. But then when I finished music and I was just a normal dude, I just kept buying to feel important.
Mm.
And it was so sad. I would get in my $150,000 car wearing about $20,000 worth of clothes, drive to the Grove, go to a movie by myself, come back home. It was sad, man.
Yeah.
I was like, why do I have all this stuff? For who am I trying to impress? So that the stranger at the Grove can be like, look at that guy. He must have money. It was stupid. And I counted up my shoes, how much I spent. I was like, I could have paid for my Nashville house in cash with just my shoes.
Wow.
And that's when I knew, Jesus, I have a problem. Now,
Mm.
again, luckily, I did it all like responsibly. So
Mhm.
we're still saving, we're still stacking up. None of this put us back, but it definitely could have put us more forward.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like it definitely could have helped if I
And
would
I
have
feel
had
like
a house, not shoes.
it's not even about wealth accumulation for you. It was like what's important in life,
And
right?
what will make you act, what will make you sustained happiness? Like
Right.
sustained joy. Because it
Yeah.
wasn't stuff. It wasn't stuff. I actually was more upset with myself than anything. That's why I sold
Mm.
it all, put it into real estate, and just was like, never again. I won't do it. And I just started selling. I sold 3 of my cars. I was like, why do I have this? I look like an idiot. All my neighbors are looking at me. I look like a damn valet at my house. At one point, I had 8 Porsches because I love Porsches. I had 8, and they were parked all in my driveway. And I had to back some out, back one this way, pull. And I'm like, what an idiot you are.
Mm.
Look at you. If you're gonna have this many cars, you should probably be able to afford a garage somewhere to stack them. And I didn't. So I was like, yeah, you need to sell this, bro. And you just
Yeah.
need to do it for your own ego. Like, see what happens when you sell all your clothes and your cars. Do you feel less important?
Mm.
Did it affect your ego? Because if it did, you had your trust in things.
Right. Right.
You probably should not replace any of it. Luckily, I sold it all and I still feel ass cool in my white tee and my whatever, like I feel fine. I'm driving around in a Volvo. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I still
You're
feel
doing
cool.
good. Yeah.
Good.
Because being cool is not about the stuff on you, what it's about you. And I think it's about identity. Like you're confident in who you are and what you put out there. And it's really cool to see, these are the things that you're going to teach your daughter. And so as you're teaching her about finances, as you're teaching her about goals and responsibilities, about knowing the God that loves her, um, do you and Ange think that you will put any effort into teaching her about her cultural heritage as part of like an important part of her identity? Um, whether it's the Mexican background, Puerto Rican background, how do you see teaching her about culture as you raise her?
Mm,
Or have you thought about that?
no, no, to be honest. Um, don't get me wrong. I think culture is important, you know. The
Oh,
culture that,
by that I mean ethnic heritage.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
To be
Not her
honest,
LA culture or her Nashville culture.
the culture that I've spent more time learning about is my heavenly culture. And I'm so not over spiritual like I used to be. I am far from that now. I am way more grounded in my faith and who God is. But it's really the only culture I ever cared about.
Mm,
I only care about cultivating like this love culture, this representation of who God is. It's just supersedes all the other culture. And again, I'm not saying the other ones aren't important, but I didn't
right.
get the privilege of being raised in Puerto Rico. I don't know that culture like I want to. I
Mm-hmm.
know it a little bit and I appreciate it and I love it. When I went back to Puerto Rico, I felt like this is awesome.
Mm,
But my life and not by my parents' fault or anything, like I was born and raised in Germany. I knew German before I knew Spanish. Then I moved to Kansas, you know? So it's like I didn't get the privilege of being born and raised Puerto Rican. I probably feel a whole different way if I was raised in Puerto Rico
Hmm.
because I'm so in tune with my culture. I've spent most of my time not in tune with my culture. And it wasn't until I found God that I really dug into a culture.
Hmm.
And that culture for me was Christianity, and it was loving other people. So the only thing I'm really interested in implementing in her life of pride, which is what makes me proud, is my understanding of my relationship with God and with his people.
Hmm. Hmm.
How I can best represent him and how I can most make people feel loved, appreciated, not judged, inspired. Like all these things to me are way more important um, to teach her because I feel like in the other way it'd be a little insufficient. I'd be like, you are Puerto Rican and you are Mexican, but me and your mom were born here and here. This is how we grew up. So we'd love to be like, there's this whole wealth of knowledge about our culture, but we don't have that wealth of knowledge. And at this point,
Hmm.
I don't know if it would have made me any more me, you know, because it's not
Right.
something I fall back on
Yeah.
ever.
I'm thinking about that because we raised our children in the hills of Appalachia, where it's mostly white people surrounding us in our town, in our area. And I think, and they loved growing up here, but it also, they were highly aware we are not, don't look like everybody else. Um, and it made our older two who were born here. Our youngest is actually adopted from India. So our youngest is the one that was like, I don't really care about learning more about my Indian culture. Whereas the other two is like, my daughter even went to India to live with a host family for a whole summer
Cool.
just to like have that cultural experience. And it's not even our state in India. It was a completely different state, completely different language, but that's how badly she wanted it. And we're like, oh, maybe we should have tried harder to teach them more about our language but I don't speak the language either. My husband understands it. He doesn't really speak it. Um, and then I know with Angela, like she talks about Chola culture and her desire. She grew up in a white neighborhood, but she really desired that. So it'll be interesting. This is my advice for parents. Like you learn what you can, and then as you do it, and each stage is going to be different. Like you're going to be different, your baby's going to be different. So one day she might be like, hey, how come we're not talking Spanish like my grandparents are speaking, your parents speaking Spanish, and she may want to, or she may be like you of like, I'm good. I know, I know Jesus and
I
I
would love
know
for her to
like,
speak Spanish. Like my nanny speaks to her in Spanish only.
yeah.
And I'm like, she's gonna learn Spanish because more so because it's gonna be a necessary tool for her to exist in this world as we continue to take over.
Mm-hmm.
The Latin population keeps getting bigger, and it's such a spoken, like it's a very like language that's spoken in so many parts of the world that it's like this would be the language to know. Um, I think it would be different if I was close with my family because then there would be a tie to the past,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not. Like I didn't know anyone from Puerto Rico. Like my mom never took me there. And
Wow.
I love that I'm Puerto Rican. I access it through when I write Spanglish music and I love when I went there, I'm telling you, I loved it. I felt so home. Um, but because of how I was raised, it's like I never felt the need to have to connect to it because I didn't need it to exist in this world. Like again, like I said before the podcast, I've never thought about race or my race or my ethnicity when I was growing up. I haven't experienced too much racism. I haven't experienced too much whatever. My friends tell me it's because of my unique makeup per
Hmm.
se. And the only way I can understand, when they tell me things like that is because of maybe it's because of how I look. Maybe it's because of what I did that I got to pass on some things.
Hmm.
So I didn't really feel racism from white people because I was always on stage and they were always, yay, you know, like
Right.
I didn't feel weird because it was mainly fans, and I didn't get to experience the racism, or people were more intrigued by my hair than trying to exclude me. Like that was just my world. So I haven't had that horrible privilege of experiencing it. So I guess it never really played a part into any of my decision making or how I feel about how I'm gonna raise my daughter, which is weird. I don't say that to be like, oh, I didn't go through it. I'm straight.
Right. I
I
don't hear you
acknowledge it
saying like,
exists.
yeah, you're not disregarding it. It's just
Yeah.
not like a thought that was prominent for you, which I think is great because that is another perspective that people have. Some people think about their race all the time, way too much, and then others don't because you have other cultural aspects to you.
Or maybe just things haven't happened to me like it's happened to them.
Yeah.
Look, I got stopped by the cops when I used to be a thug. I damn know that it wasn't because I was dark. I was doing illegal crap. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't ever gonna be like, oh, they stopped me because I'm black. Nah, bruh, I was speeding 20 miles out. No, I used to carry guns. No, I used to rob people. When I got stopped, when I got kicked out of 3 schools, it's because I got in a fight with my principal. And guess what? He didn't fight me because I was a little Spanish boy. He fought me because I was running my mouth and I wanted to punch him. Then I got kicked out of school. It wasn't anything about my color. I was a bad kid. I was a bad person. That's why I got in trouble. That's and I was honest with myself. There was other people around me that were like, I feel like this is racist. And I was like, I just feel like I'm a bad person. That's I'm just a
Yeah.
bad person, and this stuff is happening to me because I'm doing bad things.
Right. These are the consequences of your choices.
Yeah. And just my color of my skin never played a part in it. It's just my
Mm-hmm.
character. It was more about my character. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
like, I was always blindly, I was just so aware of that, And so maybe other people, though, things have happened to them that's so blatant, like being called the N-word or being whatever. Like it's so blatant that this is happening to them and it is because their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if that happened to me, I think I would be speaking a completely different way because my experiences make up my outlook. So it's like, so I think both people exist in very real worlds. But again, how do you get through something like that? Straight through it, forgiveness. Stop seeing it that way and try your best to like live in a world that you don't see it. It's not going to keep you down. Other people may be these horrible things, but you will not perpetuate it. You will not instigate it. It's like you're free. Try your best to live in that freedom.
Right, right. So the way that I hear you most relating to your culture is food. So would you consider yourself a foodie?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I like all kinds of, my favorite food is French. So.
yeah. What's your like go-to French entree, I guess?
Well, they cook lamb really well.
Mm,
I also like how they do their chicken because obviously everything's cooked in butter, so it's very like
that's true.
sultry. There it
But
is.
so is everything in the South.
Yeah,
So
it's a different take on things.
that's true.
French food. I just love it. I've loved French food forever, and then like maybe sushi is a close second.
Mm-hmm. Have
Latin
you
food
had,
is a comfort food for me, so it's just
yeah,
when I come home to my parents, I only eat Puerto Rican food.
um,
But
do you have much exposure to Indian food?
can't do it. My stomach's too sensitive.
You know what? You're ordering the wrong things.
Probably. I'm sure I can do the rice and some things, but
Yeah.
just like I don't do Mexican food.
Mm.
My stomach can't handle it.
What if there's no spices in like the taco meat?
Maybe, but then that kind of takes away from the actual dish.
No,
Because
because then you got the cheese in there
yeah, but
and
Indian food and Mexican food is all about the spices. Like it's literally what makes it like its thing.
right.
So I think I would probably be robbing myself of the true experience. Would I try it once? Sure. Do I have to be close to a bathroom? Sure. You know, I can't be going, so I'll try it. I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this a go.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of Indian. I mean, like there's spices like cumin and coriander, things like that. Can you do those kinds of things?
I would imagine so. Like I
Yeah,
don't,
so you're just talking about like heat, like chili peppers.
yeah. Well, I don't know because I don't really eat it, so I don't know what would mess with.
Oh. Okay, now I'm intrigued because there's a lot of
But
dishes that don't have
I
that.
would try it at my house as
Okay,
long as I'm not going anywhere the next day, so I
right,
can
right.
ride out whatever happens. Because anytime I
Absolutely.
eat with Ange, I'm like, I sometimes I'll partake, most of the times I don't. If I'm going to their house and they're all eating Mexican, I'm ordering myself. I'll bring
Yeah.
food, I'll order myself.
Even like quesadilla?
I don't do any of that.
Wow.
Sometimes
Huh.
tacos, but like the white way, like Taco Bell taco, like like that.
Oh, I have an addiction to Taco Bell. That was my first job, was working at Taco Bell. Have you had chai? I
No.
wonder if you'd like that.
I gotta be honest, my diet's very simple and strict.
Mm,
I don't I have my food made for me. Like I order from a place and they just cook healthy food for me.
hmm
I don't really venture off into the crazy. If I'm cooking for myself, it's salmon, it's chicken, it's lamb.
hmm Hmm.
Very, very boring. It's roasted vegetables, it's rice,
It's healthy.
I'm old, so I'm like it's so hard to keep the weight off. Like I'm heavier than I've ever been in my life. I don't have a gut or anything, but I'm just heavier than I've ever been in my life.
Is there such a thing as menopause?
I don't know.
Like, is
I
that
mean,
it?
well, for us, when our testosterone goes away, then it's really hard.
Yeah.
So I'm on testosterone supplements to kind of like try to kick back up. But to me, I'm just like I've been like realistically, I'm like as long as I don't have a gut, like I'm
You're
happy.
okay.
I'm at the
Right.
gym every day. I'm working out every day. I eat healthy. I binge a couple of times, but um, I don't
That's
eat
good.
Puerto Rican food until I get home. So I'll go months and months and months until I get to my mom's, and then
Wow.
by the time I eat Puerto Rican food.
All right. Is there something that you would like the listeners to know if they're hesitant about making a bold move?
A bold move in life.
hmm Or like, hey, I want to do this step, but I'm kind of scared, or what'll happen, all those what ifs. What
Well,
would you say to them?
if you're still listening, thank you. If you wanted to make a bold move, ah, man, it's so tough because I I get fear. The only thing I would say is have an insane sense of self-awareness and know when you are bowing out because of fear or because of an actual reason. I don't think any reason's good enough to not chase your goal or do what it is that you feel like you need to do. But if it's fear, then you got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, fear is my God.
Mm, and
You can
that's wrong.
you can make any excuse in the world, but it's when it comes down to it, I am I am choosing to make fear my God. That is what I am worshiping. And if you could say that in the mirror and be okay with yourself, then it's like, all right, then maybe you just are that scared and, do something more safe. Um, if you can live with it, then, cool. I don't think I would want to say something inspirational or encouraging, but none of that works until you can get past the fear and
Mm,
your relationship with it. You know, I remember when I was talking to this girl in Orlando and she wanted to be a singer. And this like changed my whole outlook because I was always like, anybody can do it. You can do it. You can accomplish your dreams. And I was talking to her and I was like, why don't you just, go for being a singer? And she's like, no, it's too hard. I was like, what
mm.
are you gonna do then? And she's like, I'm gonna go be um, what are those people that work at like Walgreens, like in the
Pharmacist?
pharmacist. So I'm gonna go be a pharmacist. I was like, huh, a pharmacist, eh? But you
Different than a
wanted to,
singer.
You want to be a singer. And at that point, I was like, ain't nothing I'm gonna say is gonna get this girl to believe that she can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't have a good relationship with fear and her emotions and who she is. Because if she did, then she can say those words and be okay with it.
Mm.
But then not lie to people. That's the thing. Like you can't lie and make excuses. That's why I said the first thing starts with self-awareness. If you're gonna choose to make fear your God and let that thing rule your life, then be brave enough to say, I was just too scared. But if you are willing to confront that fear, I promise you on the other side is a different kind of you that you probably didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. You can at least give it a noble go. And as long as you can take it, and at least after it's done, if it works, amazing. If for whatever reason it doesn't, then you can be like, bro, I
I
tried.
tried, right.
I tried. And that's really all you can ask of yourself. Like I gave it a go. Like I stepped
Mhm.
into the ring. But you have to have the conversation with fear because fear is the one thing that keeps you from doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
And you can have an honest relationship with fear because I always used to be scared getting on stage. Every single show I ever had,
Really?
15 years, I was scared of getting on stage. I was scared that people
Why?
weren't going to like me. I was scared that, I was going to get booed. I was going to forget lyrics. I was going to whatever. So I had to confront fear every freaking time I stepped on stage.
Mm.
And I was okay with it because my relationship with fear was healthy because I admitted it, but I always looked at it and said, but I'm still going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to get on stage because though you may exist, my insecurities exist, my fear exists, it will never be my God. I can't.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I serve one God and I just believe that I can do almost damn near anything to at least try it once and be like, so when I would get on stage and off of it, the fear would be gone.
Mm.
No longer afraid. Even when I messed up, even when I forgot lyrics, even when I fell on stage, even when, I mean, everything that could happen to a musician on stage has happened to me. Head first going into the drums because I slipped
Oh no.
over a speaker on the floor, microphone cord falling out of my mic, you name it. It has happened to me and I got through it. So there
Yeah.
became a time where I was like, anything can go wrong on this stage and I've dealt with it and I'm still here. So it's like I was literally okay with anything happening, and I'd be like, "Good, I could get through this. I've gone through everything." So
Yeah.
now, like the fear doesn't, the fear stopped existing for me.
Right. Right.
So that's what I would say. That's a long answer, but I don't even know if it's a good answer. But that I
No, I
feel
think that's, yeah. Because I think that's, you're right. That's what stops people most of the time. Because if they can just get past, because you just have to get past it. Like, because it's a natural reaction. And you
it's
got to
normal.
think,
You're not abnormal.
right,
Every single person feels it.
right,
Some people will bow to it. Other people will step right over it. And it doesn't make it go away. It just means that you're choosing to confront it so that when you
hmm,
get on the other side, you realize the worst case scenario didn't happen.
right,
And even when sometimes it does, like forgetting your verse, falling on the stage, you still have another show the next day. It didn't end your career. So now,
right,
like, none of these things make me afraid anymore. I'm just like, whatever,
right,
and that's very powerful to not be always afraid. So I'll start anything, I'll try anything and give it a go. And then if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll be like, all right, cool. I tried it. I
right.
fixed it.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing about your life and being vulnerable. I think people listening will really be encouraged, seeing everybody on this podcast has a different way they see things and go through life. And I feel like your contribution is so needed to think through like the ways that they see life, the ways that they reflect God, the ways that they want to make choices. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Being Brown and Bold. You can find us on Apple, you can find us on Spotify, and if you stay here On YouTube, you can see all the other episodes. I have some amazing guests sharing their life and their perspective, which is all different from each other. So I hope it's encouraging to you. So we will see you next time. Till then, be wise and be bold.